What's up, guys? We are here for episode number 4 of the Artist Emancipation Podcast, and I'm here with a really cool guest today who I found at random, which is like beyond me. It's the one time that the Instagram algorithm actually worked in my favor. So here today with me is Gina Rose. She is the most amazing concert photographer that I've seen
Stop.
in my life. I'm trying to think. I'm like, do I know anybody else? I'm like, no. So she's here with us today to talk about all things photography, how she got to where she is now, and basically just passing on some knowledge that we can gain from her beautiful brain over there. So Gina, tell us about you, how you got to where you are, and kind of a little bit about your history.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. I'm so excited.
Yeah, girl.
My name is Gina. I am a concert photographer in the Philadelphia, PA area. I have been doing this. Next month will be 8 years.
Oh my God.
Which is wild. I started photography when I was really 16, 17 years old. I got my first photo pass at 17. And ever since then, I've been shooting festivals, working for media publications. I currently am a senior co-editor for one of them.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm just out trying to travel.
She's like, I'm out here doing my thing. I love it. So I just want to know more about this because to me, like, it seems like you've been a photographer like since day one, it seems like. So there's been no really like wishy-washy of like what you wanted to do for your whole life. So how was it like when you were young trying to get into the scene that you wanted to get into?
Oh gosh. Yeah. So basically how I got started in photography was I bought myself like a Canon Rebel T5 for my 16th birthday. Like I had birthday money. And I bought that, funny enough, to take product photography for my jewelry business. I do make jewelry. I'm not plugging that. I'm just giving context.
He's like, but if you want to check out my Etsy, here's the link.
Yeah. And I wanted to take good photos of the jewelry that I make. And I was like, I'll get a camera. And just on a whim, I brought it to a festival with me. I just fell in love with photography from there. I had no idea what I was doing. I had, 2 kit lenses, just, crop sensor body. No idea how to edit, how to use manual, but I just fell in love with it. And I was like, I don't know how I'm even going to get my foot into this industry. I'm in high school. I'm 16. How do I even start? And I was really lucky to have some like mentors, people, again, online communities. They can be very powerful if they're used properly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I met a couple of really great concert photographers who just kind of took me under their wing, gave me some advice, how to get a photo pass, how to edit your photos correctly, stuff like that. But it took a while for me to really sink my teeth into it because I have anxiety. And as a little 16-year-old, I'm like, gosh, am I even supposed to be here? All of these photographers in this photo pit are big men with like 3 cameras and like a belt, with all of their lenses. And I'm just here with my little T7. I'm like, am I supposed to be here? But I loved it so much that I was like, it doesn't matter how I feel. Yes. I just want to do it and just, what the hell, right?
And I truly believe that like most or majority of artists really struggle with some sort of like mental, I'm not good enough. I call it the imposter syndrome. Like we all have that feeling of like, we're meant to be behind the scenes and like we want to show our work. But like, in order to do that, we also have to be very confident in like our human presentation. Right. So it's like for you to show up and be like, I deserve to be here too. Like as a 16-year-old, like, are you kidding? That's so fucking cool. Oh, sorry, parents. But FYI, we talked before this and I was like, you know what? You can cuss, you can do whatever you want. And she's like, well, my mom and my dad are going to be watching this. And I was like, oh, I better watch myself. So I'm sorry, mom and dad.
Say whatever you want. It doesn't matter.
She hears it at concerts, okay?
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. So that's really cool. So as a 16-year-old, you're there, you're in the pit, you're taking photos. Now, for a lot of people, even I'm a big music industry fan. Obviously, we like the same kind of music,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how we connected. But like, I have no idea how it works. So like, you show up, you take the photos. Now, are you interacting with the actual band? Are there people behind the scenes? So kind of tell us a little bit about that process.
Absolutely. It totally depends. Every concert photographer's story is different and how they function is different. For me, I started just applying for photo passes. You just reach out to a band's publicist, their management, um, and request a photo pass. But the caveat of that is you usually have to be shooting for a magazine or a publication or a
Gotcha.
blog,
Okay.
something like that. Because you get into this show, you get a photo pass. In exchange, they get publicity, right? Um, I was very lucky because the first band I started shooting, they were called Skillet, way back in the day. And um, I was kind of friendly with the band members at the time. They liked my photography, they knew who I was. So I was able to get photo passes from them directly. And for a while, it was like the only band that would give me a pass. Like, no one else would give me a pass. So I
I
was
love
just
You're just
photographing
like
them.
nonchalant, like, oh, I was just friendly with Skillet. And they're like one of the biggest Christian rock bands. Just FYI, if you guys are listening and you're like, who is that? But like, they're big. They're big. Don't let
Yeah,
her
just a
tease
little
you.
bit, just a little bit. We go way back.
That's amazing. So I know they're pretty like involved in the music scene. They have a lot of like, as most artists are, they have a lot of buddies. So did they end up like passing your name on to their other friends, or was it just like a kind of spiral from that point?
I think more so it was like, oh, Skillet's touring with this band, Breaking Benjamin. They're touring with, or they did a show at Starset, which I flew out actually when I was 16. I flew out to Kentucky to see Starset and Skillet together, and it was like the best. It was so good.
Like I'm in love with them. So I'm like,
I
that's how.
know.
FYI, guys, for everybody listening, like, so most of you probably know, if you know this, me and my Instagram, like, I'm obsessed with Starset. They're my favorite band ever. So when the algorithm connected us, she actually saw one of my artworks that was based on one of Starset's song, and that's how this all got started. So we are very much on the same page with music, and that's why I'm so interested. I'm like, how the hell? Because Starset, I don't know if you know this, but they're incredibly picky with their creative stuff.
Well, they definitely have a very specific aesthetic that they stick to,
Yeah.
which is what one of the things I love about them. They do the theatrics and the concept art so well, and
Yes.
they're good while they're doing it. They are so
Oh,
good live. Oh
so
my
good.
god,
So good. So, guys, if you have not listened to Starset, this is a plug for this whole podcast is a
this is
plug
a
for
plug for Starset for real.
come,
Dustin,
come
hit me
visit me.
up.
I love it. I love it. So you have, I mean, you're like relatively still young at this time. I mean, how old are you now? You're like 20,
I'm
20.
24.
24. Okay, so you're still
Yeah.
very young at this point. So you're 16, 18, I don't know how old at this point. You're shooting some of the biggest rock bands out there. What was kind of the moment you're like, "Oh my god, I'm pretty good at this and I'm killing it." I mean, did you have like an epiphany at any given time with any certain artist?
Um. Yeah. I don't. Yeah. I don't want to brag, but no. So when I was 19, that was the first time that I ever shot like a festival, like a multi-day, 2-day festival. And how I got on the media team for that festival was Jen from Skillet. She messaged me and she asked if I was shooting Uprise, this festival. And I said, no, I'll have my camera, but I'm not like on the media team. And she said, oh, I'll fix that. So like within like a couple of hours, I'm getting like all these emails from like Jen and their publicists and Uprise, and like the fact, and they were the headliner for this festival. So I think it was like that moment of like, oh my god, like she wanted me there so bad that like she made this happen like 3 days before the festival, and then I was on the team, and I've been on the media team ever since, and they're a great team.
That's amazing. I love that. Isn't it crazy though? Like, especially in an artist or creative career, just how one connection with somebody can like literally blow up
Yeah,
everything.
absolutely. I'm very grateful for all of the bands that have given me, a chance, and publications. The first like online magazine I have photographed for is called Rock on Purpose.
Oh,
That was created by a friend of mine, Mary Nickel, and she is so talented and she's great. And she reached out to me again. I was like 18, 19. She was like, "Do you want to shoot for me?" And I was like, "Yes."
oh,
um, and it just opened it up from there. And that was the first time really that I was able to get access to photo pits like Star Set, Within Temptation, Breaking Benjamin, stuff like that. So
that's amazing.
it kind
And
of
like,
feels like
and
it's
I really would.
humbling.
Right, and I feel like God, you're only 24. Like you're gonna kill everybody. Like just not literally, but like you're so talented. And I'm gonna get into your artwork here in a minute. But if you just go look, somebody stumbles upon your Instagram, like you have such a unique style, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yeah, okay, well, how it's this I get the same kind of thing with graphic design. It's like, okay, well, how different can you be? There's a million graphic designers, there's a million concert photographers. But
Mm-hmm.
when I found you, I was immediately drawn to your page. So
Oh, thank
I guess,
you.
yeah, of course, I think like the question here is how long roughly did it take you to really start to get into the groove of your style? And was there anything that really influenced you in that?
Oh man. I think it's a constant like flow. Like I never had like this, oh, I want my work to be like X, Y, and Z's, or I want my work to be this way. It was like a natural progression of let's try this like really colorful method of editing. I'm going to try this while shooting. I'm going to try the wide angles, and just a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
And also just being inspired by other people. I don't like to take like, oh, they did this, so I'm going to try it. I'm going to do this too.
Right.
It's just more like, oh, like, this photographer, I love their coloring, or I love their editing, or this composition is really nice. And just constantly being inspired by people and wanting to pull little bits and pieces and see what works.
Absolutely. And one of the things I say that makes like a truly successful artist is like that method of exploration. It's not going into something and knowing like, I mean, this absolutely can be the way people work, but I'm sure you don't walk into a concert and you say, I'm going to stand here, here, and here. I'm going to get this shot, this shot, this shot, and that's going to be it. You're like, no, I want to play with the angles if the light's hitting here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's
Yeah.
just so many different things that you're willing to explore and you're willing to push. And the best little like unknown mistakes come from those. Oh, I'm going to try this. So
Mm-hmm.
I can see that in your work because like it's so different.
Thank
It's
you.
so different. And I will say that I see a lot of concert photography. A lot. And like your coloring, Jesus
Oh,
Christ.
thank
I'm
you
a,
so
like
much.
I'm a big fan, obviously. I have pink and orange in my
I
background. Like,
love that, by the way. I really want a neon sign that says Gem of the Rose, like put it like right here, maybe.
get
I
it.
think that would look so sick.
Get it. Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Neon like changes the whole environment. Like I'm down here. This is my dungeon basement for everybody listening, but it's dark as fuck and like there's just neon lights down here. But I
Mm-hmm.
always have them on when I'm like editing and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's so cool. But yeah, I'm a big fan of color and just the way that you push the aesthetic of your images, which brings me to my next question is obviously music is such an emotional act, right? And you're very into it. Like I know the type of music you listen to. It is very hard hitting in the heart. Like it's
Yeah.
very emotional. So knowing that you know their music and you show up and you enjoy the actual band, like how does that influence your work? I mean, do certain genres like give you I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah, so my dad was a drummer, and I grew up just loving music, listening to like rock and metal. My mom loves music. From her, she loves like 80s synth pop and like alternative stuff. So I always grew up in like a house of music, even though I have no musical bones in my body at all. I cannot
I
sing, I
love that.
cannot
I
play,
love
can't do anything. My camera is my instrument.
I love that. Look at that.
um, but I always connected with music. I always, since I was a little kid, would create like soundtracks to my life and soundtracks to stories I was writing. And, I always just felt so interconnected to these little stories that are being told in song. And when I started going to concerts, I felt this thing that like I had never experienced before that was like you're feeling the music in a whole different way. It's vibrant and it's fresh and it's all around you. It's so surreal because you're celebrating this music you love with thousands of other people around you.
Right,
And
right.
the artists are so passionate about what they're doing. And I think that really inspires me, is seeing the artist's passion for their fans and for the music they're creating, and seeing other crowd members just crying or, raising their hands or screaming or moshing. And it just really inspires me to want to not just capture it, but to be a part of that, because it really is a community, and it's an experience. It's not just a show.
Right.
It, to me.
100%. And even looking at your photos, like, it is an experience to look at your photos. Like, that comes through very clearly, that you're putting the emotional intent into your photos.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm going to say it again, beautiful work, obviously, but it's very cool to see that. And like, especially knowing like the kind of mood that like Starset is, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I know them as a band, and then I see your work and I'm like, that fits. So it's almost like you're an extension of their brand without really being in the team. You know what I mean? Like it's an incredible thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you're very good at like picking up on the overall vibe, the overall brand, to produce a certain image, which I think is a huge talent to have, especially in concert photography.
Thank you so much. I try to stay true to my like personal style. Like, I love the color, and I just love emotion, passion, and movement. But I definitely like to take the time to look at the bands that I'm photographing. Like Starset, obviously very into the neons, into the, kind of post-apocalyptic. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And like the space thing, and it's like, okay, I can implement some of those neons or those bright colors, those bright blues and purples and pinks. Same with like Sleep Token, who's my favorite band.
Dude, they're so good. So good.
I got to photograph them before they went like no photo, so I'm very proud of that. Very happy.
Oh my god, girl, that's dope.
But they have like a very like surreal kind of vibe to the kind of media that they produce. So I try and like emulate.
Yeah.
I can't speak. Emulate that.
Something happens when you get on a podcast, you just forget English. Like I do it all the time. It's a very it's a very interesting thing that happens. But yeah, it's very cool, because I tell a lot of people, like, as an artist, I think people get confused. Like, if they want to pursue concert photography, they think that they just have to learn the camera, learn all the technical difficulties that could happen, and then they're good to go. And that's not really the truth. Like, the thing that you hold that sets you apart from other people is like the vision. You can feel the emotion at the concert. You can feel the emotion of the band, and you're bringing that into your artwork, which is why you're so good at what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah. And this is why another reason that I was like very intrigued by you when I found you, but like you also mentor other photographers. So I'm like, this bitch is good. Like, and she's teaching other people. Like, I love it. So what kind of made you go down that route?
It wasn't a conscious choice. I just kind of found people would message me on Instagram like, hey, I love your work. Can you give me advice on applying for photo passes, or can you give me advice on editing? And it became like a very common thing. And then I realized, like, I love this. I love teaching people. I love sharing my passion, because photography is like a hyperfixation of mine. So if like people actively seek me out to ask me, that is so cool. And like I said before, I had mentors back in the day that gave me, tips and tricks and didn't gatekeep. And if I could be that person now for somebody else, kind of complete that cycle, that 100% makes me so happy. I don't know everything. I'm not going to sit here and say I know everything about photography. Certainly not.
But it's one of those things. It's like, I don't think even the most expert may not know everything about photography. What you do know is your style. You know how you got to where you are, and that's priceless in everybody's eyes, right? Because you're doing a job, that was finger quotes, guys, job that most people would kill to do, right? Like, it's like when you're in high school and people are like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they're like, concert photographer. Like, I love that shit. Like, you're doing it. you're doing it, and you're doing it
Yeah.
so goddamn well that you're teaching other people. And it's really impressive to have that mindset, especially as a 24-year-old, like to want to teach other people, to want to pass down the knowledge. Because I don't know if you've noticed this in the creative industry as a whole, like gatekeeping is a thing.
It's really really bad, especially in like the Facebook groups. Like as like a woman or just non-man, you know, in those groups it can be harsh.
Yes.
Um and I've witnessed it just time and time again of like people asking for advice and then getting like absolutely obliterated in the comments, like why don't you know that, or you know, why would I tell you that, or like, oh, I'm like, someone obviously gave this info to you at some point, right? Like
Right.
you weren't birthed, you didn't come out of the womb knowing about concert photography. Someone
Right.
gave you these tips and this info. Why would you not pass it along?
Right. Right.
That's how I view it.
I view it that way too, and it's very interesting because like I struggled a lot with mentoring because I would teach people I think a little bit too much of my style, so I would see like a lot of replications of my work, and I was very frustrated with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just like stopped for a while because I was like, maybe there's something that you're not figuring out about this. So what has been like the biggest difficulty in teaching people photography for you?
Honestly, the biggest struggle is like when I tell people that I like, especially like in those Facebook groups or like talking to people, like people at shows, like, oh yeah, like I like to give tips to people, and they're like, why would you do that? Like, you know, don't give all this. And I'm like, why are you coming at me for doing for like mentoring
Right.
people or giving advice? Like seriously.
Yeah, it's a very rare mindset to have, in my opinion, to be a creative who's willing to share, kind of like your secrets with everybody, and really want to teach people just authentically
Mm-hmm.
without wanting, like pay me $5,000 and of course
Yeah.
I'll teach you.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's one of those things that you have to really be passionate about your area of study to want to pass it on.
Mm-hmm. And
So it
oh sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and also I find with the people that I've helped, um, they don't just snap their fingers and they're shooting like me,
Right.
because art is so intimate to you. Like you have to build up the techniques, you have to learn the techniques, you have to learn the history, how to do it, and then you start slowly finding your own path in
Right.
it. And I guess I tend not to teach like my own style. I just teach like the techniques that I've learned, like
Yeah.
how to compose correctly, how to um, properly underexpose properly so your shot's not overexposed, but it's just exposed enough that you can edit it and bring up those lights and those colors and everything like that. Because I think those are important to know, especially because I've been mentoring for quite a bit. I can see in beginning photographers, I can see like, oh, they are not exposing correctly, or they're not focusing on, you know, straight lines or composition or whatever. And I learned to pinpoint things and
Right.
then help
Right.
from there instead of just being like, you want to edit like me, all right, this is what I do.
Here you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really awesome. So it's very detailed kind of guidance when you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at people's photography. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. All right. We are getting to the end of the podcast here, but I want to ask some fun questions.
Okay.
So, who is your favorite band to take photos of?
Oh, see, the question "Who is your favorite band?" and "Who is your favorite band to shoot?" are like
Well, let's just
two
share
different
both. Share both.
answers.
Share
My
both.
favorite band is Sleep Token. I have a picture of Vestal that I took over here. Um, I'm obsessed with them. Everyone's obsessed with them right now.
They're hot
Um,
right now.
they're
Yep.
so hot right now. So good. I knew them. No, I was gonna say I
You're
knew
like,
them
I was
before they
an
blew up,
OG.
but I shot them like right before they blew up, so I'm counting it.
Oh, of course. As you should. Yeah. 100%.
um, Very hard shoot though, because they had opened for In This Moment and Nothing More when I photographed them, and like they had like really bad lighting. It was like they had like very small production, so it was a rough shoot.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, so I have a picture of Bastille right here.
Yeah.
They're one of my favorite bands. They were so fun to photograph.
Oh,
Um, the whole photo pit was women that night. It was like we just
go
had a good
figure.
vibe. We had a good vibe going on. It was great. Colony House is super fun. Skillet is great, obviously, all the time.
Yeah.
Um, Starset's hard, but they're a good challenge for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, you kill it. Like, I
Thank
want
you.
everybody who's listening to this podcast to just like, as soon as you're done, go look at her Instagram because she's like downplaying how talented she is. Like, her photos are incredible,
Thank you.
incredible.
Thank you.
And it's so funny too because I'm like, has she ever failed? Like, what's
Yes.
like the worst? I mean, maybe not the worst, but like when you went to like photograph a concert, was there any time you were just like, oh shit, like
Oh
I
yeah.
really messed up?
Yeah. So I photographed a band called Nightclub. They're like a small like electro pop band duo. They're great. I recommend them.
Yeah.
I've shot them a couple times, but they invited me out to shoot a show for them. It was at a casino in Atlantic City. And when I get there, this is not the band's doing, by the way. This is not Nightclub's fault. The venue was like, you have to shoot from the side of the pit. Like you couldn't move around in front of the stage. And it was a big stage. And the band only had lights on them in the center and not on the sides. And I'm like all the way to the side, like trying to shoot. I have my 70 to 200 millimeter with me, but the lighting is like not good because it's like a weird angle. They wouldn't
Right.
let me move. The lead singer literally messaged me after and she was like, I'm sorry. That looks a bit difficult. And I was like, they wouldn't let me move. I don't know. I don't know. So those
You're like, I
pictures,
had a
I
panic
didn't love
attack.
them. I was like, they asked me to come shoot this show and these pictures are going to be awful because this venue like is not letting me do what I need to do.
So how strict are they like with the pit stuff? Because I know I always see when I'm at a concert, you guys are like have the very front.
Yeah.
And I usually see you guys moving around, but I'm sure like bigger shows are very kind of picky about that stuff now.
It depends. I'll say industry standard is first 3 songs from the photo pit, no flash. That's first 3, no flash is a
Oh,
very common statement to say.
okay.
And that goes for tiny venues, that goes for big venues. If there's no photo pit, kind of got to fend for yourself. If you have to shoot from the crowd, you got to do what you got to do.
Oh God.
Some bigger acts have you shoot from the soundboard instead of the photo pit.
Okay.
And so soundboard is like where the soundboard is. I don't know if you are familiar. Like,
Generally, yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
like kind of like far on the floor. It's like in the back of the floor or in the center of the floor, depending. Those can be difficult. You need like a 400 to 600 lens for those kind of shoots.
Wow. Wow.
But yeah, usually it's, photo pit, first 3 songs, and then you're out. So it usually gives us like anywhere between 8 and like 15 minutes, depending on how long the songs are.
Oh wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is like freaking amazing information for people who are like, I really want to try like concert photography. So like at the end of the podcast, we're almost good to go. Like, what if that person is listening to this and they're like, oh my God, what do I need to know? What would you tell them is like the best advice if you want to get into this industry?
I would say just do it. Just do it, because
Yeah.
like I said, I have anxiety, and I think that for years I hindered myself. I didn't allow myself to take opportunities or to put myself out there because I was so terrified of getting the no or getting blacklisted, which is ridiculous. It takes a lot for you to get blacklisted. Or like, we never want you to share, like, my brain goes crazy. So
Right. Right.
being a teenager, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to waste their time if I ask, if I reach out. Let the anxiety go. I know it's easier said than done, but once I did that, once I was confident in myself enough to just put myself out there and be okay with the no's and be okay with the ghosting, I got a lot more yeses.
Absolutely.
And I regretted that. I regretted not having that kind of like drive early on. That the drive was there. It's just my anxiety was just holding me back.
Right. Right. But look at you now, baby.
And listen, I have a lot more to go.
Well, you're going to get there probably sooner than you know it.
Hopefully.
You were incredible to have on this podcast.
Thank you.
I cannot wait for people to hear your advice, your knowledge. You are one of a kind, truly. Let people know really quickly where they can find you, if they want to work with you, kind of what you offer. for bands and for other artists.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Gemma the Rose. My website is gemmatherose.com, and I offer any kind of photo work that you need, behind the scenes, dance parties, concerts, on stage, off stage, backstage, anything you need.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
coming
Shawna. This was
on.
so much fun.
You are so welcome. I will be sure to list all of your contact info under the podcast. So if you guys want to contact her, you have access to her. And yeah, go comment on all of her photos because they are beautiful. All right, guys, that is it for this week. We will see you next week on the Artist Emancipation Podcast.